Paul, thank you so much for joining the Michigan Business Wrap. Be sure to check us out on our website, mibizwrap.com. Connect with all the business experts. Listen to any of the shows you may have missed or want to listen to again. It's right there for you on demand, mibizwrap.com. So, Paul, UnoDeuce Multimedia.
Yes, sir.
Give us the background on all of this and what exactly you do, please, sir.
Well, what we say we document the why. Mm-hmm. What we do is we use video to help tell the organization's story and who they are and what their purpose is.
Okay, based here in the Lansing area?
Based here in Lansing, Rio Town area.
Staff size?
We're about 3.
3? 3. Who gets the corner office out of the 3?
Well, you're looking at it.
Nice. Sweet. So what do you do these videos for? Are they small businesses? Are they training videos? What exactly do you usually do? What does a normal day look like when you're out shooting video?
Well, we don't really have a normal day, and our customer base is, it's split between nonprofit organizations, family-owned businesses, stuff like that. We do anything from training to promotional to educational to commercials, whatever is needed at that time for what the customer wants.
Have you guys ever had a TV commercial done for you, Bob or Jim?
I haven't had a commercial done for me, but I've been in consultation with somebody to potentially have some videos done.
Okay, Bob.
We have through the years. We've a number of different TV spots that have been filled. Generally, they are filled. We've always, in the past, have always used the station that we're going to be advertising. You have one of the station; they do all the filming, they do the artwork, everything, and then if you want it on other stations, they just send it over. That's how we've always done it in the past. But from what I understand, some of that is starting to change with more and more companies coming on board that are doing that specialized type of work.
Do you find that to be the case, Paul?
Absolutely. I mean, there's more and more outlets, more and more ways to get the message out. And you need organizations that know the landscape, and television companies, they know their landscape, and we know the internet landscape, the web landscape.
Okay, no offense, but being in radio and you're kind of in the TV-esque field of work, when the thing that's cool about radio, in my opinion, is it's immediate. If we want to do a commercial, we'll get it on within. I can get this thing done in an hour at the most. Why does it take you guys so darn long to get a commercial done? Not you in particular, the video people in general.
Well, sometimes it really depends on the complexity of what you're trying to do. Sometimes you can get a quick turnaround time depending on on whether or not the content is simple enough and you get the graphics ready, you have all that stuff ready. But sometimes it's like any other type of business. You got to line this up. You have certain deadlines here, not certain deadlines there. So you have to really put it in a queue and make sure that you go through the entire process. There's a lot of checks and balances that we do before we have a published video, or before we have a video go out before it's published.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to get your thoughts on something. I brought it up in the past in terms of these big-time companies. You study this industry, I would imagine. So we got these big-time companies that spend all of this money on commercials, and then they try to place it on a prime show, let's say The Walking Dead, or just something that gets a lot of ratings, in the hopes that people are going to be seeing it real time. But we know with DVR and all of these other things that people, for the most part, a lot of people are going to just record it and then bust right through these commercials. Is the money being wasted by these companies?
That's a tough one, because I do feel like it can be. And the fact of the matter is, where the money should go is really trying to create a visual landscape in which they're going out and branding it on the elements and where people are. They're on Facebook, they're on all these social media. They're try to target it in that direction. But there's still, television is still kind of dominating the landscape at this point in time. But if you look at the numbers skewing towards the younger folks, television isn't their primary mode of, communication or, for advertising. That's not where they're at.
Bob and Jim, when do you sit through commercials? Can you think of a time where you're just going to sit in front of the TV, or are you flipping?
If I'm even watching a live sports game, I'll start recording it, wait 15 minutes or 20 minutes or a half hour, and then by the time you get to the end of the game, you're caught up just so I can go through. Now, what we do, and I see a lot of companies doing, is logo placement. So as you're fast forwarding through the commercials, and you're flying 2, 3, 4 times faster, is we'll place the logo on the screen all the time while the logo. So even though you're fast forwarding through the commercial, our logo is still on the screen for the entire shot. So visually, you're fast forwarding through it, you're not hearing it, but visually the logo is still there. And I see a lot of companies, the bigger companies, are doing that very thing.
Seems to be like a good idea. And you mentioned sporting events. I mean, let's face it, with March Madness underway and all of this, a few weeks ago when we had the first 2 days when all of those games take place, there's like 4 games going on at each time. A lot of people are watching it, but the minute one of those games goes to a commercial, they're flipping onto another game.
Yeah, a lot of people are. Even going back to putting the logo up there, if you're in a bar setting to where there's 4, 5, 6, 10 different screens all up and it goes to commercial, you can't hear what they're saying. But again, by having your logo up there the entire time, visually, anybody in there that's watching that screen, they're looking at the logo.
So if you were creating a commercial, where would visuals in terms of a logo or just some sort of font that somebody at a bar would know when the TV's on mute, let's face it, they're still going to be able to see it. Where does that rate in importance to you?
High, very high. You have to keep those branding elements in place. You have that logo for a reason. You have your colors and your fonts for a reason. You have to, and you need to tell the story without the sound on. I mean, even when if you going back to social media, people are watching the videos without the audio. So having it visually pleasing is really huge. So having that logo and those colors and those fonts, that's really, really important because it's all part of that. Like what Bob said, it's all part of the brand.
Paul, you mentioned social media. Are you creating videos for clients with the only purpose to go right onto social media? And is there a measurable way for these companies to figure out if the investment was worthwhile from what you can tell?
Okay. I wouldn't say that we create all of our videos to go directly to social media, but I would say most of them, that's where they end up. Mm-hmm. We really work with the client to figure out, well, how do you want to use this video? What are you trying to say? Who are you trying to reach? And so we build it that way. But, you do have this video and it's going to social media most likely at some point. So you take that and you look at the measurables. It's really hard to look at ROI, return on investment, when it comes to video. But what you look for is in a couple different ways. You look for whether it's, the view count, which is subjective, but the shares, how many shares is this video getting? That's Facebook, that's Facebook way. And with YouTube, it's more or less about who's commenting on your video and so on and so forth. But it's really boils down to the view count. How are you using the video? Are you putting it in the path of the people that you want to reach? Because if you're not using it appropriately, then you're not really going to get the reach you think you want. It's not a magic bullet. You don't put it out there and, well, it's out there. But if it's not on your website, if you're not drawing attention to it or using it in a place to bring it back, or if you're not using it as a tool to bring it back to your website, it's really hard to justify that. It is a tool. You have to use it, and you have to use it in a place where people are going to watch it.
Hey, Paul, this is Jim McDaniels. One of the things, there's so many different ways you can use video, and you and I have had some discussions in the past about this, but one of the things that I tend to think about things and stew on them, but you mentioned this earlier and you mentioned it before, you tend to tell the story of the why. Mm-hmm. And I think about some of the social media outlets. I even think about some of the commercials. I'm one of those guys that I don't sit there to watch a show, but I'm going to have it on, and if there's a commercial, I'm going to listen to it. My wife and son will be in the kitchen watching replays of last season's whatever and bypass all of them. But telling the story of the why, I don't think you can always do that. I don't want to say you can do it in a commercial if that's your intention and you take the time to do that. But so many people are researching companies before they even make that first call, that one of the things lately that I've really felt compelled to do is make sure that when that person lands on something that's mine on social media, that they understand the why. And I almost feel like almost like I have to do that. And I can definitely see the benefit when I look at some of my competitors that maybe have a video or two out there. Whether they have 10 or 20, that's irrelevant. But even some, I mean, you can certainly, people can see that you're involved in the community and they can garner that kind of stuff. But I'm imagining that you probably, even though you can't measure necessarily sales, I got to imagine that that's only helpful to have that out there, because we know that people are generally referred to us, looking us up before they call us. It's only going to enhance what we're trying to accomplish to begin with.
Exactly. I mean, when it comes to using the video outside of, the 30-second spot, even though the 30-second spot is about uplifting the brand, that is exactly what the video is trying to do. Who is your brand? What is your brand? Why are you doing what you're doing? And in some sense, it's a bit of a PR tool as opposed to just being a promotional and informational tool. It's trying to encompass, who you are and why you're doing what you're doing. Absolutely.
Another thing before we move on to the topic at hand today here on the Michigan Business Wrap on the Team 92.1, when we're talking about the visuals and everything on a commercial, it is 2017, and I still see a lot of commercials where they're putting a phone number on the screen, so that's what you're seeing. And Jim's talking about doing your research basically on a company through their website before you even make that call. Is it important for a company to still put a phone number up on a screen, or would you prefer to just see a website only?
It's really, a lot of those calls to action at the end include both a number and a website.
Is that too much?
No, I don't think it is at all. I mean, it's still, you're trying to entice people to communicate with you in their frame of mind, and people still use the phone. I mean, even though, we're in the cell phone generation, you can look something up, you can get to an email quickly. But I think having the phone number and the website is still necessary. We still do it, even though a lot of our stuff goes to social media. We have those items up there because that's sometimes how people want to communicate.
Do you ever have to deal with that when you're working with a client? They want a lot in 30 seconds, let's say. Let's just say it's a 30-second commercial and they want a lot of information in there. Is there an overload point for the average consumer when they're watching a commercial?
There is an overload point. You can only put so much into 30 seconds. So we tend to really try to hammer in, one or two major details. Sometimes you can fit in 3, but for the most part, you really have to, 30 seconds is a tight time frame.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's your TV talk, your TV update. What's the last TV show you watch, Bob?
Probably one of my favorites, actually, Gold Rush.
Gold Rush? The heck is that?
That is one of my favorites.
Jim, please give me something better.
I'm watching the late night shows last night before I went to bed. So
okay, Paul, give me something good. The Walking Dead.
Well, right now, my wife and I started Homeland.
Have not seen it. I've heard a lot of good things about it. So
it's pretty good.
You're the winner on this one. Be a part of the conversation with the business owners you know. The Michigan Business Wrap is live from downtown Lansing next to the Grand Traverse Pie Company. We are back. This is the Michigan Business Wrap here on the Team 92.1. My name is Tony Cuthbert. We are joined by a panel of business experts today, and they are
Bob Hedlund, Hedlund Plumbing.
Jim McDaniels with the McDaniels Insurance Agency, Farm Bureau Insurance.
Paul Schmidt with UnoDeuce Multimedia.
Keys to delegating as a small business owner. We were talking about the fine line of delegation, I guess. If you are in a small business, everybody's wearing a lot of hats. We know that. Bob, you bring up a good point. Communication is key.
Absolutely, and it is. It's something that my brother and I, we meet on a regular basis, and meeting with the staff in the office of what they're doing and what expectations are when we change things around. And I think a key to communicating, and I'm really a really big believer in this, is if you want somebody to do something, you don't tell them to do it. You don't tell them what you're going to do or what they're going to do, but you ask. But through asking, you're explaining the why. You mentioned, Paul, you mentioned earlier to start the show of the why. And I am a big one of If you can take the time and you can communicate clearly why they're doing something, nearly anybody will be on board if it's properly communicated. And that's where the communication, you have to be prepared to listen too, because that one task might be the one thing that just absolutely puts somebody over the line, which that happens. And if that's the case, now you have to, as an owner or a manager, you have to be prepared to reshuffle and say, okay, that one's over the line. Now we're going to, maybe shuffle with somebody else. Where can that workload go? That's where communicating throughout the office, communicating everybody that's going to be working on those tasks, that's where it's so important.
And this is Paul, and I completely concur with that. I mean, I know that we're a small team, but there's a million and one things that are happening, and having that communication and that pipeline going and understanding, and people understanding where they're working, what they're working on, where they're working on it, because we have multiple stations, and figuring that whole process out, and streamlining that over the past few years has been really key, and everybody knows where everybody is. And then you can go into, like you said, why are you doing it? Why are you telling the story this way? What's the client looking for? And we do have a couple meetings a week. And like I said, even though we're a small staff, but we really have to be nimble on where we have to be.
But Paul, it's you and two other people, okay? And you determine that a task needs to be delegated to somebody else, and then they come back to you and tell you, there's too much on my plate. I cannot do it. Sorry. But you have the other feeling that the other staff member probably couldn't do it either. So it's right back to you. What do you do?
Actually, that really, what we all know our roles, even though, and that's what we stick to. We stick to our roles and how we manage that. And then if there happens to be overflow, somebody says, look, this is overflowing. And then we figure, sometimes I have to put myself back into the trenches when it gets busy, but that's an expectation. And that's okay. But I'm in there very rarely because of the pipeline that we've developed.
Is it deflating to you or any of you as an owner when you try to delegate, if it's happened, and then it ends up coming back to you and you got to do it just because there's nobody else that can get it done?
This is Bob Hedlund. I would say no, because what that's telling you is there's still a breakdown either in the system, where you go back to basics. Why didn't this work? Why isn't, or if a employee is completely stressed out, they're maxed out, maybe that's the time to start looking. You know what? It might be time to add a fourth person or add that next person, even if it's part-time, bring them in just to take off so that, whatever, again, you're looking at what tasks are they doing over and over and over, and if there's something you could bring in a part-timer and relieve some of that stress so that employee goes on to something that's more important on the list.
This is Jim. For me, I think it depends on the situation. We have a small office, and over I guess we're going on 8 years, I've honestly had as many as 2.5 people doing the job that I've had one person doing the last 2 years. Basically, I've been blessed to hire what I would call are more effective people that are able to multitask at a higher level, very customer service oriented. And so when I see that somebody can do some of that stuff, and we track how many calls we get, and we have a fair amount of analytics so that I have some feeling if we're, how long things are taking. But I know that if I download something, in my mind initially I'm thinking that they could do it. So when that does come back to me, I am a little deflated, to be really frank. But I think to Bob's point, it provides an opportunity for us to maybe look at the system and figure out where the breakdown is.
You mentioned also, Jim, the environment within a workplace and when delegation occurs. That's very, very important to have an open dialogue once again and have an environment where people feel free to chat with one another. You
got to have, I think it's really important to have camaraderie, teamwork. I think you all have to be on the same page, even though we have different roles. We all, like today, I literally will be in my office for no more than 2 hours. I left my house this morning at 6:30. I will not show back up until about 9:30. But I'm working. My team needs to know that. Otherwise, they're thinking I'm slacking. But it's a teamwork.
This is Paul, and I agree with that. And that's the setup we have in our office. It's a team. Everybody knows their role. Everybody knows where they're going to be. And sometimes, it just so happens that I don't mind getting back into the creativity. I'm out and about all the time, like Jim says. And sometimes doing some creative tasks really helps me in understanding where they're taking things.
Well, if any of your staff members are listening, there's no slacking going on right now. Correct, Jim? You're not slacking.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm slacking. I'll let her be the judge of that.
Okay. Well, I'll verify.
Agreed.
He's
Agreed.
not. Nobody's slacking. Be a part of the conversation with the business owners you know. The Michigan Business Wrap is live from downtown Lansing next to the Grand Traverse Pie Company. Welcome back. This is Tony Cuthbert, host of the Michigan Business Wrap on the Team 92.1, joined by a panel of business experts today, and they are
Bob Hedlund, Hedlund Plumbing.
Jim McDaniels with the McDaniels Insurance Agency, Farm Bureau Insurance.
Paul Schmidt with UnoDeuce Multimedia.
We're talking keys to delegating as a small business owner. I want to shoot this one at you guys and get your thoughts on it. I brought it up in the past, but it's very fitting today. Fortune magazine is proclaiming Theo Epstein as the world's greatest leader. The first question is, do any of you know who Theo Epstein is?
I do not.
I don't know.
Okay, nice. He's the Chicago Cubs executive, okay? He's the president of baseball operations. He's followed by Alibaba founder Jack Ma, Pope Francis, Melinda Gates, and Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos. Okay, that's on the list, the top 5. So Theo Epstein is number 1. Fortune stated that the Cubs owe their success to a 5-year rebuilding program that was spearheaded by Epstein. He took over the Cubs in 2012, and the team earned its first World Series championship since 1908 last season. The 43-year-old Epstein previously won 2 titles with the Boston Red Sox. So this guy is turning around franchises that did nothing, and he's won World Series titles with them. And the story that I love, Epstein followed a rule that fast-tracked his career. He's 43 years old, and he has one rule that he has always followed. And this is what he says. Whoever your boss is or bosses are, they have 20% of their job they just don't like. So if you can ask them to figure out what that 20% is and figure out a way to do it for them, you'll make them really happy, improve their quality of life and their work experience. In other words, take on the aspects of your boss's job that he or she hates. All right? By diving into less glamorous work, you will gain respect as well as invaluable experience for yourself. So this is an example of an employee that doesn't wait for the delegation. They just just jump right up and take it over for themselves. What do you make of this theory that Theo Epstein has?
This is Bob Hedlund. I do agree with that. As far as what you're trying to do is smooth line the entire operation, literally, if that means from top to bottom. I'm not saying somebody at a low level, I'm talking corporation or larger, is going to walk into the president and say, what can I do for you? Maybe they are, but I'm not real sure they're going to get real far. But yet everybody has some form of a boss or a manager or somebody overseeing them. And the more you can do at your own level, the more value you're going to bring to your salary and to the company. And you got to remember the bottom line of a wage or salary or anything like that. Business owners, whether it's corporation or small business, we're basically trading the company dollars for your value. So the more value you can bring to a company or an organization, the higher they can justify paying you. So if you want to make more money, bring more value to the company. And if the company understands and you can promote yourself doing that concept, you will bring the value, and therefore you should be making more money.
This is Jim McDaniels. I totally agree with that quote as well. Essentially, if you think about it as for us as business owners, or at least me, myself, quite often if I'm hiring somebody new, I'm getting to understand them, learn about them, and it might take me 6 months to slowly peel off some things as I'm feeling that person out, maybe to ask them to do. And if that person is on their own, initiating some, initiatives to try to take on some of those things that they see that either make me better, stronger, they know I'm not perfect at, not necessarily that I don't like it. It's only going to be an asset to me. And I'm thinking about one individual in particular. I would honestly say for the first couple of years that she was with me, she was always a couple steps ahead of me. And it made my day so much smoother with a lot of the what I would call mundane things that I don't like to get buried in, but she made sure I was taken care of all the time amidst everything else she did. So she provided a great value to me.
And this is Paul with UnoDeuce Multimedia, and I, with the others, do agree with that. And I think that, bringing that value and bringing that, that intuition of, well, I can add on to this. I can do more here because what the folks are doing is making their job easier. That's their mind frame. They're making their job easier. And in a creative environment like myself, that we have. I mean, there's so many different variables that you can have, but understanding, okay, this is the technical part. You streamline that, you can get to the creative part. Yeah, it's just having that initiative is huge.
This is Jim McDaniels. If I can just interject again, I mean, I think of the three of us here, I think Bob has the most employees, and let's just say he's got 15 plumbers or whatever their titles are. Imagine that one person that comes to work for Bob that does a little extra and takes on some initiative, and imagine how much that person is going to stand out, regardless how long they've been with Headland Plumbing, above their employee peers. I mean, it's only a great thing for that individual and shows a lot of initiative.
I would agree 100% on that strongly. The standouts will. Now, the counter side of that, if you're slagging behind, you have a bad attitude, you're making it difficult for others, you really there's some people that are just not happy people. They just, no matter what you try to do, they don't want to fit in. Trust me, they stand out as well. And you as a person, as an individual, you have to make the decision, which side of that coin do you want to stand out at? Because you will stand out, either in a positive way or in a negative way.
And it's this is Paul again at UnoDeuce. And for a guy like myself who does not like to micromanage, I'm not a micromanager, and I don't like to be forced to do it. Having those employees that just step up and do the things that are necessary, that even just be intuitive about it, really takes a lot off my back.
I think there's one thing as owners or managers that it's important. If you are with a personality that micromanages and you know exactly how you want everything done, you better know exactly how to do the job before you start telling somebody how to do it. Because I think some of the best systems and the best ways of enhancing and building the structure of your business is ask the people that are actually doing it. Because you may be looking at it from a management standpoint or a cost standpoint, but they're actually doing it, and there's a lot of times, for me, whether it's a new tool, whether it's a way and steps of doing it, and talk to those employees, talk to the people through your entire team, have that communication of exactly, if you were to write a manual of exactly how to do your job, how would it be? Because a lot of the times the people doing it have a better idea than you do.
Okay. In conclusion, do any of you remember his name? The guy we're referencing.
Theo Epstein.
It's something to do with the Cubs.
Yeah, the Cubs, the Chicago Cubs.
I do recognize his name after you mentioned some of the...
Okay. So if I were to come up to one of you, if I work for you, and I said, what part of your job do you hate and what can I do, you would have an answer for me?
Yes.
Absolutely. In fact, it's already been delegated.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I didn't get to you soon enough on that one. Let's get back to the topic, keys to delegating as a small business owner. And one of the points that from the article that we're referencing on this topic, they say hire carefully based on skills you need. Think of this as future delegation. Do you think about that when you hire somebody in terms of the skills that they possess? Maybe you notice something in an interview, if that's at all possible, that, you know what, maybe they're the right person where I can delegate something to them in the future. Is this for more of a corporation?
This is Jim McDaniels. I'll jump in first. For me, my agency is so small that it's very, very important that I should be doing that. I'm certainly looking at the position, hoping that individual will be able to do the job. But I really, really have to trust that individual. I got to feel like, we can be a team. We can come to work together. I know some people out there say, hire for the position, don't hire the person. Hire the position, don't hire the person. And, if you have more success than I do at hiring for that position, I think when it comes time to delegate, or, you've already decided it before you've hired that person, this is what that job entails. If you're hiring for that position, then you're kind of trying to, you're in essence, you're taking the person out of it. For me, that's difficult to do. I'm human, probably difficult for everybody a little bit, but.
What about a task that you want to delegate, but there is nobody within your business that can, let's face it, they can't jump on day one and figure the whole thing out. So you basically got to teach them what they need to do with this task. Are you willing to do that? Because it's going to eat up your time to teach them this. Eventually, you hope that they'll be able to take it over, but that's probably not assured.
Well, this is Paul with UnoDeuce Multimedia, and in that case, what happens for what we do and the aspects of what we're focused on is typically that teachable aspect comes from the top down. Yeah, you take some time or your own to teach your manager, who in turn, delegates it out to the person below them. I mean, I know, like I said, we're a small shop, but we really have a streamlined way of doing this. And I do less and less teaching because, the management that I have underneath me, if you want to call it that, does that job of saying, this goes here, that you do it this way, this is our process, and then you just reinforce from there. So that's what's been helpful for me when I brought in employees over the years, and a lot of them just, it's weird because we are small, but it seems like the folks stay and they come in through an entry level and move up. And so when someone moves on, somebody's ready to take that spot and already knows, oh, okay, this is how it's been, and is ready to display that to the person below them. It's kind of interesting how that worked.
Tony, you mentioned earlier about taking the time to train them. I think, again, it's going to be what's your goal of business? Is your goal to be around in a month, or is your goal to be around in years? Mm-hmm. Because if you take a month and train that person, yeah, you may have to do it over and over, and you give up a couple of weeks of training. But beyond, generally, people within a week or two, or within a couple 3 weeks, they have a pretty good idea how exactly what you want. So yeah, give up that week or two, train them, because then you've got somebody that can do that for the years to come instead of just looking at today.
Completely agree with that. Completely agree with that.
And this is Jim, and I to answer your question, Tony, I think you have to. I mean, you can delegate training to some extent, maybe if you've got a big enough team. But at the end of the day, culture, expectations. At least in my office, there isn't anybody better to train my staff than me. So I have to invest that time for due to the size of my company. I don't have a choice. The expectation is that as I teach things, they'll be learned, and I can teach something different. And it can take numerous months to get through that.
When the delegation occurs finally and it's off your plate, what is the follow-up, I guess, on your end? Because you mentioned the word micromanage a little bit earlier. You don't want to just completely berate your employee or just follow every aspect of what they're doing. Or do you? I don't know. Do you let them kind of like run free and take it over and own it? Or is there a follow-up? How do you navigate that?
Well,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to mention, you teach a child to ride a bike. Just because they go out there and ride it one time, you just don't take the training wheels off. Generally raise the training wheels little by little, and pretty soon they're riding the bike on their own. This is no different. You teach them how to do it. You give them a little bit of space, a little more, and a little more. Within a short period of time, they're off and running on their own and doing it. I'm not a big believer of just, okay, there you go, and you turn your back and you never look over their shoulder. Of course you have to, because you want to make sure you have consistency. But at the same time, it's all in the training, and that's all a part of the process. It takes time.
And this is Paul with UnoDeuce, and we have certain apps that we use so that people know what's in the pipeline, what the tasks are, what has to happen. And so anytime those things are checked off or moved, and I'm notified immediately that those things are happening. And so I see stuff visually while I'm out of the office, out and about like normal. And so I feel like not only is stuff getting done and you're seeing it, but I also feel like I'm part of that loop. And so I know how to ask questions and ask specific questions, or know where people are, and we can move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. Tony, Jim McDaniels. Back in my painting days a number of years ago, I had the privilege of doing a lot of work for Spartan Motors out in Charlotte. One of the coolest things that I learned and I took away from that is a slogan that they have: don't expect what you don't inspect. Don't expect from somebody what you're not willing to inspect. And so I think you have to make sure that you're doing quality control, because you don't know if it's getting done otherwise.
That's a good one. Man, you guys are good at these quotes that you just roll off. Bob has them all the time, and Jim, great. Paul, give me one, please. Never mind. We don't need to go there. Something though,
Wow,
Paul. That
no time at all on that one.
we move quick. We're limited on time. You were gonna. Do you have one?
Discover or document your why. That's my quote.
There you go.
Look at that.
There you
Look
go.
at that. That's so good. Now, Paul, before we wrap it up here, something that strikes me that you brought it up numerous times with your staff and how basically everybody just picks up the slack. It's a team. It's like a well-oiled machine, and it's only 3 people. And you have a competitive marketplace in terms of other people that are doing work similar to yours. There's a difference. We don't need to go into all that. Where do you find these people that are able to just jump right in there and just get it going?
Well, they do come from the schools. They do come from LCC and MSU. That's where I've gotten my employees. But we build a creative not marketplace, but creative environment, and so that allows folks to feel like, well, I have freedom to breathe, but at the same time, these systems are in place that, okay, I know where I'm at. I know where things are. It's been an amazing ride with the folks that I've been able to bring in because, we try to create an environment in which they can learn, in which they can create, and in which they can have fun.
Mm-hmm. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's the easiest way to do so?
Go to UnoDeuce.com, UNODEUCE.com.
And it's all right there. This has been another edition of the Michigan Business Wrap here on the Team 92.1. A big thank you to all of our business experts today, and they were
Bob Hedlund, Hedlund Plumbing.
Jim McDaniels with the McDaniels Insurance Agency, Farm Bureau Insurance.
Paul Schmidt with UnoDeuce Multimedia.
Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Another great conversation. Be sure to stick around here on the Team 92.1. The Schuling Report with Ryan Schuling is coming up next. Our website, if you miss anything, it's mibizwrap.com. Connect with all the business experts and listen to a show over again. Maybe you missed one. It's right there for you on demand, mibizwrap.com. My name is Tony Cuthbert. A big thank you to the producer of this program, Morgan Hall. Without her, well, the show wouldn't exist. mibizwrap.com. This is the Michigan Business Wrap.